All right. Hello, everyone. It's Mathematics and Society Secrets. And today we are debunking all of society's, all right, not all, I shouldn't say all, a lot of society's misconceptions about transgender. And with me, I have the lovely and beautiful, not just lovely as a human being, but absolutely beautiful inside and out, Sadie.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Sadie and I met. Many of you know I am a bartender for a lifestyle club, Club 3X and Club Nightlife. Club Nightlife is the bar side, and I have had the pleasure of being introduced to Sadie, and I have absolutely fallen in love with her as a human being. And I want to formally introduce you. And to begin, I'd like for you to just tell us your name and a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Okay. Well, do you want me to tell you or tell the camera?
Tell the camera.
Okay. My name is Sadie. I was originally born in New Jersey. I've lived in Florida for most of my life. And yeah, I like to read. I'm also a musician. I've been playing the bass guitar since I was 18.
Learned that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been playing bass since I was 18 years old.
We're going to start a band.
Sure, why not?
So you play the bass, and
yes.
then are you allowed to say what you do for work?
Sure, I guess. Well,
I know
I
some
don't
of it's
know.
classified, right?
No, I'm an engineering manager. I can say at least that much.
Yes, that's pretty cool. I know that like a lot of people in this area, many people moving from other states to here is because we have a lot of opportunities for engineers, right?
Oh, yeah, generally, I mean, we have a lot of the defense contractors are here. So like Lockheed's here, Raytheon's here, Northrop Grumman's here. But also obviously the attractions are here, like Disney and Universal and stuff. And so, they pay very well if you are an engineer. You can get into Universal's creative.
Not.
Oh, that's okay.
I said I'm not an engineer.
I'm an engineering manager. I manage people, but myself being an engineer.
Well, it's still a skill.
It is.
So now that we know a little bit about where you have originated from, would you give us a little background about yourself and your childhood and what that looked like? Obviously, we already started the podcast announcing that you are a transgender woman. Yep. I would say the thing that I'm most curious about is when you felt that you were not, in fact, a boy.
Yeah, of course. I had a very good childhood, not gonna lie. But I pretty much I knew there was something off when I was about 6 years old. I was kind of drawn to things that were classically more feminine. I especially like playing with like more feminine toys. As a kid, I wanted a pink convertible car. I talked about that all the time. I obviously also gravitated more towards like feminine clothing. My mother had me when she was fairly young. And so her sister, my aunt, was even younger than my mom. And so she had at the time very trendy clothing and kind of like sneak into her like dressers and stuff and wear her clothes when I had the opportunity to.
You had told me a story once at the bar, if you're willing to share that story, one of your childhood memories about getting...
Oh yeah, about the time that my uncle kind of like caught me. Yeah, like I put on like a pair of pantyhose and like a bra, and I wanted to have like a dress, but obviously I'm a child, so I don't really know what's gonna fit me or what's gonna work. So she had like a slip kind of, but it had like shoulder straps. So I put that on, and I was just kind of just like, oh, this is so nice, and I was just enjoying being in my feels, I guess. And my aunt's ex-husband saw me from way down the hallway. He was in the living room, I was in the bedroom, and he didn't say anything to me. I didn't know that he saw me. And then later on that evening, my parents talked to me, and they were like, hey, his name was Mike, this person's name, and I can say his name because...
Fuck him.
Pretty much, yeah, actually. But there's a reason why he's my aunt's ex. They said, hey, Mike said that, he saw you doing this. And my dad, to this day, he doesn't remember saying this. My parents don't even remember having this conversation, but this is kind of the important thing, how, small things can become a core memory for a child, I guess. My father was just like, "But you wouldn't do that, would you?" And I knew at that point that there was a right answer, I suppose. And so I said, no, I denied that I did that. Even though I knew that I had done it, I denied that I did that to my parents. And that's kind of what I think, that's the earliest memory where I knew this is a bit taboo. This is different. This isn't something that, you know, this isn't something that I should be doing. And so I hid it.
Would you say that it was maybe a core memory because it made you feel shame?
I don't know if I felt shame at that point. I think I developed shame. Shame didn't start because I didn't really know what shame was, As a child, I don't think that children really know what shame is
Mm-hmm.
until adults like put that on them, or society shows you, hey, you should be ashamed of that. But I didn't feel it then. I felt it as I got older, and I because that kind of said, oh, maybe I should hide this. This is bad for some reason. But I think that society taught me more so to be ashamed of it. Obviously, I grew up in the 90s. And so people who, cross dressed, if you will, which is what I thought I was, even though I knew there was something more to it.
If you could separate the two,
Yeah.
explaining to the audience what the difference is between cross-dressing and transgender.
Oh, and being transgender? Yeah. Well, I can tell you from my own personal experience. I mean, I can't speak for everybody, and I can't really speak for every trans person out there. But what I can say is, as far as my experiences, when I was a child, I would engage in cross dressing to explore and express my own idea of gender. What felt natural to me, what felt right to me. I didn't like wearing boy clothes. I didn't like being a boy even. I used to wish I wasn't a boy. I used to wish I could just wake up and be a girl, because that felt right. I wanted to be a girl. I wanted to do what girls did, and I wanted to be perceived as a girl. I didn't want to be perceived as a boy. I didn't like being perceived as a boy. Something about it was just very, it just upset me. And on like a very on like a visceral level, I was just like, but I'm not, or I don't want to be. This doesn't
And how
define
young
me.
did that feeling start?
At 6 years old, 7 years old, as I continued to age, obviously, and then of course once I hit puberty, puberty was rough. Puberty, I was not happy when I went through puberty.
In your opinion, do you think that when you see parents who are saying that their 2 and 3-year-olds are transgender,
Mhm.
do you believe that that is an actual possibility?
I suppose that it's possible, but I I don't have any memories of myself from being 2 or 3 years old. I remember my mother used to say that I was effeminate as a child, up until I had my first girlfriend, which I kind of like forced myself to do. I've never really been into cis women, but I tried to be what I thought society wanted me to be. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that by 4, 5, 6, I was definitely exploring gender, questioning things, and I knew there was something off about myself. Definitely when I was 6 years old. So I mean, knowing it too, it's possible, but that's just not my experience.
Yes. See, for me, and I am not transgender. I was born a woman. I
Yeah.
am a woman. I can only speak from my own perspective. I personally feel that I can remember aspects of my childhood at 2 and 3, but I also can say from my own perspective, I think that a child at 2 and 3 is not really thinking about their gender at that point. They are more learning.
Yeah.
They're in their high point of learning and absorbing things. So in my opinion, I feel like if it's being said that they're transgender at that age, it's something someone else is placing on them.
I think that at that age, you're not going to you're not going to have that
Awareness
vocabulary.
and awareness. I don't think most children don't have that self-awareness until I think they can truly express that.
Right. And that's why I think it's also important that you let kids explore that.
Yes.
Like, if your child is not gravitating toward what you believe is what they should be gravitating to based solely on their sex assigned at birth, then there's no reason to force them to do that.
Oh,
Let
yeah.
them, it's better at that point to allow them to explore, because
I agree.
maybe, maybe they're just different. Maybe there's something else going on. I mean, who knows? People are really all very different, and no one fits into one perfect box.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a 17-year-old son now, and when he was like 3 and 4, he loved the color pink and would
Right.
naturally gravitate towards it. But also at the time, I had bright pink hair and I wore
Right.
very bright colors,
Yeah.
and I was his main caregiver.
Mhm.
So a lot of that
He may have just associated with you.
right. And so, but he also really enjoyed wearing pink. And I can think of 2 instances where he put a tutu on. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
And that,
just being a child. And
yeah,
I think
kids explore.
letting people be, or children be whimsical. And that's the whole point, is
Oh,
that
yeah.
they're at an age where there isn't judgment yet.
Yeah, exactly. And that also is part of what I said. A child's not going to feel shame for who they are
Yeah.
until someone tells them that they need to be ashamed of
Well,
themselves.
that's why I was asking, because somebody saying you're not going to do that, right, would kind of instill this, what did I do wrong?
It definitely let me know that this was something that I shouldn't be open about, or that this was something that might be wrong or bad.
Mhm.
But I didn't understand that I should be ashamed of it yet. I became ashamed of cross-dressing as I got older. But my first fantasies were, of being with men. I was just terrified of, I was terrified of being gay, really, because it was the 90s. And I knew how people, as I aged, I knew how people treated gay people, and I knew how people treated trans people, definitely. And I was afraid of that, because when I was younger, I just wasn't very brave. But I did not realize that I was having these feelings because I'm actually straight. I want to be with men because I like men, because I'm a woman.
You identify as a
That's
woman.
what's going on in here. And I hate to be a cliche, and I don't really believe it to be a cliche per se, but it is like being trapped in the wrong body. It's like it is like being trapped in the completely wrong body where nothing feels right. Which is interesting, actually. I think you're eventually about HRT.
Yep.
But it was a big change for me in terms of how it made me feel on the inside. I lived most of my life in a fog. And then once I started hormone replacement therapy, things became very clear to me. But I can go into more detail about that later.
No, I would love to. We can just dive right into some other important messages that we want to put out to our audience today. And I think another one would be asking what it looks like to be masking.
Oh, God. That's a good question. Yeah, masking sucks. Any trans person who has had to do that or felt that they needed to do it can definitely tell you that. Masking sucks when you have to go out there every day and continue to put on a show for people and be this person who you really aren't.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. I didn't realize that I was masking for a long time. I mean, I knew I was, but I didn't want to allow myself to believe that I was. Like I said, I felt a lot of shame, and I felt a lot of like, no one will love you. No one will understand you. Everything will suck. And that was society. That was the pressure from society to fit in to the box that they kind of put me into. Just because of the circumstances of my birth.
What did your masking look like?
What my masking? Oh, well, my masking looked like for me was, let's see. As I aged, once I got into my 20s, so I really tried my best to play that gender role. I worked out like crazy. I was working out like every other day with some very good friends of mine who I'm still very good friends with, who accept me now. I was just trying to build muscle. I was experimenting with having different kinds of like facial hair. I had a beard for a while. I had a goatee. I had a mustache. I was just trying to be who I believed I was supposed to be. And I thought, funny enough, and I think that this is something that I think a lot of, at least trans femme people or trans women, people who do transition from male to female, I think a lot of us maybe do this, especially if we transition a little later in life, is we try to be that, you try to be that man. Like you try to be what society wants you to be. I had masculine jobs and it just made me feel worse, actually. It just made me feel it made me feel like shit.
And was there destructive behavior that followed in that masking?
Somewhat, yeah. Well, because you don't care about yourself, right? There was a time in my life when I was just resigned that I was waiting around for the end, you know? However it came, it came. And because I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. I wasn't happy. There were plenty of times when I would take a shower, and when you're in the shower, you're all alone. No one's there with you. And that's when you can just kind of let it out. And I used to sit on the floor of the tub and just cry my eyes out, just wishing that things were different. Like wishing, like, why was I born this way? Like, why does this have to be me? And why can't I just be like everyone else? And it's just, beating the shit out of myself. I would drink more than I should have. I would have, sometimes you drink a little too much and then you'll get in the car and drive, like, because you don't care. Because you don't care. You really don't care about yourself. And that might not be every trans person's experience. I just know that was my experience. I definitely had self-destructive behavior, especially because I was trying to, like I said, be what I thought people wanted me to be.
I know we've tapped on this a little bit because we've had prior conversations and we discussed transgender women competing in sports. I mean, transgender people, but there's always this big uproar when transgender females compete against naturally born women,
right?
In sports events like the Olympics or something major. And I was filled in on something that was really interesting to me, and I think that would be a really good conversation to debunk, because this may disarm a lot of people's preconceived ideas that they are actually a threat in the sports world, when after our conversation I said, wow, I had no idea. So
I can touch on that.
Yeah, we had talked about hormone replacement therapy, and I think that is where we should start.
Sure. HRT changes you fundamentally. Obviously, like I said, I worked out like crazy when I was in my 20s. And I was never the strongest or the fastest, but I was pretty strong, and I put a lot of work into that. And once I started HRT, it completely changed everything, because in order to transition, in order to medically transition, right, you get on HRT specifically to change the way your body works. And we're all humans, right? Even though some of us are male at birth, female at birth, and there's also intersex people who exist. Our bodies all work the same way. Just because you're born male doesn't mean that your body has no use for estrogen. Everyone's body uses estrogen. Everyone's body produces estrogen and testosterone. It just depends on the quantity, right? And that's generally done in the gonads, which is a technical term, but that's the ovaries, testicles. But everyone has a little bit of both. I started taking androgen blockers, and then I would take estrogen. So we're lowering testosterone, we're upping estrogen, and then your body says, okay, I know what to do with this. And you literally start to transition. That's the whole point of the term. And it changes where you store your body fat. All my fat moved way down to my butt, my thighs, my hips. The fat composition of my face shifted. My skin got fairer. And a big thing that happened was my muscles atrophied significantly, because they require testosterone to continue to build. Female bodybuilders will take testosterone. Like, this is not anything anyone, in order to have those kinds of muscles, whether you're born male or born female, you have to take T in order for that to happen. You have to take steroids, and T is a steroid. So yeah, my muscles atrophied completely. Like, I can't lift anything barely anymore. Like, I'm not going to bench, I can never bench that much to begin with, but I'm not going to go bench what I used to be able to bench. I can't even squat what I used to be able to squat.
Right. So really, in the competitive world of any kind of, whether it's high school sports or on a national level, or we'll say the Olympics, really, if those people are competing, when I say those people, I mean transgender, excuse me, transgender people are competing, they've altered their hormones.
Yeah, you've altered your hormones. You are going to perform differently.
They aren't as big of a threat as people perceive.
And that's kind of the thing too. It's not even really that, like, you're not really going to be like a threat to anyone per se. It's more of a threat to the patriarchy itself. The ability of a transgender person, because you will have my hormone levels, I get them checked every 3 months. So I have the same hormone levels as a cis woman would, right? I have, and I've actually, I don't even take anti-androgen, I don't take androgen blockers anymore because I've had surgery. I think that one of your questions was asking about that, but I had an orchiectomy.
Talk about it.
I had an orchiectomy, which is testicle removal. Also, I don't have that anymore. Mainly because that's your testosterone factory. So I got rid of that. I don't have to take androgen blockers anymore. Now I just do I do an estrogen injection every week, every 4 days. Yeah. Yeah. So my hormone levels, whenever I check them, are generally at the hormone levels of a cis woman. That's what the W path, the acronym completely slips my mind right now, but it's the health organization that handles transgender health.
Okay.
But it's within their guidelines, literally. In order to transition, all you're doing is just changing in order to medically transition, you're just changing your hormones around. So I have the same hormones that a cis woman would have. And that is why I can't function like I used to. I can't do what I used to do. And then, of course, I went through male puberty. I worked out like crazy. I'm not going to be able to do anything that I used to be able to do. And if I was, I'm 39 years old. If there was a 39-year-old cis woman and we were going to race on a track or try to lift weights or something like that, I might have a slight advantage if she's never done it before, because I would understand what form is. But if pound for pound, we've done the same thing and both understand, good form, it's kind of a toss-up who's going to be able to lift more or do more.
So you're saying we could have an arm wrestle right now?
Actually, maybe even. I'm not even very good at arm wrestling. I'm really not that strong.
I'm just kidding. I won't do that because I can't guarantee that I would win either.
I mean,
we'd both just be like,
yeah, pretty much.
But I definitely think that these are like points that are so valid and misunderstood. And I remember the first time I met you, and I immediately accepted you as a woman. I saw a woman in front of me. I also got to know your soul and the things that you talk about, the way you carry yourself. Without question, you are a woman to me.
Thank you.
And I feel that is really what transgender people are looking for, is to just be accepted in the body that they feel.
That's it. Like, trans people, it's not some conspiracy. Like,
they're not trying to take over the world.
No, really, all trans people want to do is just live normally like everyone else does, and be able to love who you love, do what you want to do, and live your life. That's it. If a trans person's trying to, like if I'm trying to go to the bathroom, I literally just want to take a piss. Like, that's all I want to do. I'm not even interested in cis women. So because here in Florida, I can't actually.
So you can't go into the women's room?
No. In a publicly owned building, so one that's owned by the state, this would be courthouses. Anything that takes state funding here in Florida, it is illegal. It's a misdemeanor for me to use the women's room. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's insane to me.
It causes me to just hold it. Like if I have to go to the bathroom, I'll look for like a family restroom where I just won't pee. I'll just hold it, or I'll time when I go out. So it's like, okay, let me pee before I go. Then and then I'm fine later. But we
And
just went to Colorado and
these
it's
are
like that
things
there.
these are things that everyday people don't even think
Oh
about,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I know for me, I just have like an overactive bladder. I always have.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know, it's like my brain literally immediately when it's as soon as it's, oh, you're trying to do something.
Yeah. Time to
Oh,
pee.
you should probably pee first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just immediately my brain says I have to, and I can't even imagine like being in a courthouse and thinking, "Ugh, I can't, or I shouldn't, or
Yeah, imagine having like jury duty and being like, "Hey, do y'all have a special restroom or a family restroom?" Because then you have to go ask for an accommodation, right? You have to ask someone to help you, and you have to go up to someone, and you don't know what their
would
feelings are going to be about trans
wouldn't
people.
that mean though that somebody would have to recognize that you are a transgender woman? Or is that just the risk you're not willing to take?
Well, it's always kind of risky, just existing as a trans person in this political climate where we've been demonized, in my opinion, and based on my own thoughts about this and my own research and following, real ass journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's all political. It's just a wedge issue. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
It does make it so that you don't feel like you can trust anyone. Because let's say that
That's
have,
unfortunate.
yeah, let's say that I have jury duty and I have to pay, but I know that it's a misdemeanor for me to actually use the women's room. I could go into the men's room, but that's, fucking degrading. And also, depending on where you are, does open you up to the possibility that someone might try to beat the shit out of you.
Or
Because,
harm
yeah,
you on
they'll
some
try to
way.
harm you or maybe even sexually assault you. So that's not going to happen if you go into the women's room. You'll be able to go use the bathroom.
Is that a real fear for you on a day-to-day basis that somebody will attack you?
Um, it's so
Or is it just a thought in the back of your mind that
it's
you
a.
have to be aware at all times?
I think that the latter is how it is. Like I'm not like petrified in fear or whatever. I was when I was early on in my transition, because I didn't feel like I passed. Hate the term, but I didn't feel like I did, and so I was like, let me just continue to mask. Let me just continue to boy mode, as we say. At least trans
Were you
feminine
like
people say.
fist pump as you go out of the bathroom? Hey,
Yeah,
Dad.
yeah,
No, that's unfortunate. And I don't feel like I know as women too. I mean, I work, as I said, in a bar late at night, and there are
yeah.
times where you shouldn't fear it, but you have to be very aware of your surroundings just going to your car.
You do, and you do. You have
As
to be
a
aware of your
woman,
surroundings
a
everywhere.
lot of times in general, you're already susceptible because you're perceived as weaker.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, now you have kind of like a double whammy.
Yeah, and that double whammy is kind of just like, you're presenting feminine, you're giving woman, if you will. And when you're medically transitioning, your body's changing. Like I have breasts, I grew them myself. Like
I
I
love
didn't
that.
have these before, I
So
grew
proud
them
for you.
myself. Thank you. But it's just, I'm going out, I'm presenting in a feminine way, and I feel good about myself. And I like to look good. Who doesn't like to look good,
Hmm.
Looking good and feeling good in your body, in your skin, in the clothes that you're wearing is something that everyone does. It's a very
Hmm.
human thing. And so to go out and then know that you're part of this class of people where if I'm in the wrong place,
It's another minority.
someone could harm me and completely and totally get away with it. I don't
Hmm.
even, because I don't know what's the politics of the police officer who might be pulling me over. What's he going to see? What's he going to do? What's he going to
Hmm.
say? He can do anything he wants. Anyone can.
And I do sort of feel that I feel like a lot of transgender people may not report. So men are less likely in general to report sexual crimes.
Oh yeah.
That is a statistic that is out there. They are much less likely. And then add a transgender
Yeah.
person to that, they're even less likely. I think it's like 1% is willing to
I think
report.
that a large reason why
They don't think anyone
trans
will believe
women,
them
oh well,
or support them, maybe.
that for me, and that's another reason why I don't go anywhere alone. You know, I always have my boyfriend with me, or I have my friends with me, or if I'm going alone anywhere, I go to work or something like that.
Mhm.
There's always safety in numbers, and you've got other people there. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, who's going to believe you is kind
Mhm.
of the thing, you know, because it's like, how could someone, if you're sexually assaulted, you'll get no one's going to sexually assault a trans woman when that's just not the case. Like,
Mhm.
it's just not the case.
What is another misconception that you want to discuss regarding transgender?
Well, I guess a big misconception is actually, there's a huge misconception that, that being trans is always somehow tied to your sexuality, I would say. Like,
Mm.
I don't get sexual gratification out of being trans. I don't get sexual gratification out of being a woman. I get sexual gratification out of being with someone who wants me and wants to be with me, for me. And so that's where that comes from. Being transgender, that's just who I am. That's my gender expression. That's me on the inside. I'm a woman. I happen to be transgender. But my sexual orientation is completely different from that. So it's, possible that there's plenty of trans women who are effectively lesbians. They're interested in other women, whether they're cis women or trans women. There's bisexual trans women. There's pansexual trans women. It doesn't, you can be trans and you might not be into guys. I happen to be, but that's me. So that's a huge, like
So
there's
you're
no
saying
sexual.
transgender is just like everyone else?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
what
we're just
I'm
like everyone
hearing?
else. We're just like everyone else. We just have to take.
Meaning, just like if you were born a woman, you may not want to date a man.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah,
Or if you were
it's the same
born a
thing.
man, you may not want to date a man or a
Yeah,
woman. Excuse
right.
me.
Yeah,
Your sexuality is separate from your gender.
100%, absolutely 100%. And it's just like, and I've met and know plenty of gay men who are even more feminine than I am, but they're not trans.
They're comfortable being a gay
Yeah,
man.
they are. Yeah, they're a cisgendered gay man. So it's just like, it's not, because I've heard that before too, where it's just like, oh, you're just a gay man. It's like, no, I'm not. I don't even. That's just not me.
There's a gland that affects, so something scientific about like when you start doing gender or hormone replacement.
Which is also you can also call it gender affirming care,
Okay.
but it's a wide scope. Hormone replacement therapy itself is the actual replacing of the hormones.
Right. And you had said that it affects the actual. So if you were born a man and you identify as a woman, that and if this is incorrect,
So I think it was Master Gregory who was actually talking about that, because he's read a ton of papers about this.
there's been science that proves
Yes,
transgender.
available on PubMed. There are quite a few papers written on this subject. They're easily Google searchable on PubMed. Basically, there's multiple areas of the brain. They are currently focusing on the corpus callosum, which is the central gland in the brain that allows crosstalk between the two hemispheres. The pineal gland, the amygdala,
Pineal gland.
the pineal gland,
Mm.
the amygdala, and the hypothalamus, and also the mass differentials of the cerebral frontal cortex. When you do an autopsy, I'm a scientific photographer. I used to participate in autopsies to do scientific imaging of the results. When you do the autopsy, you can identify a female brain from a male brain because of the structure, both internal and the just the general mass of the brain. Men have more massive brains, women have more dense brains. So that basically it means, they say, well, men have bigger brains, they must think better. No, that's not true. The density of the female brain is quite significantly higher, which would suggest that their thinking process is far more complex. But when you do a autopsy of a transgender person or a brain scan, which is what the studies on PubMed have been based on, you find a very interesting thing, and that is that a trans woman, in other words, a person born with male genitalia, but their brain structure is significantly female. And by saying male and female, the difference between sex and gender. Male and female is sex, man and woman is gender, in scientific terms. So when I say male brain or female brain, that's the brain sex. If I say male body and female body, that's the body sex. You can very easily find a female sex brain in a male sex body. That happens simply because of a hormone displacement during gestation. The mother's hormone signaling is delayed, and the body and the brain develop asymmetrically. It's a normal process. It happens in about 1.6% of the human genome. Absolutely normal. There's nothing abnormal about it. And science is still studying exactly all of the intricate things that happen thereafter. But the bottom line is that when puberty happens, that female brain is expecting estrogen and it gets testosterone, and it doesn't feel right about it. And Sadie just mentioned that. She said when puberty hit, she felt awful. That's common. Almost every transgender person I've met, and I know a lot of transgender people, every transgender person I know has said exactly the same thing.
Thank you, Master Gregory. Only because I had this conversation privately with them at another time, and it's not the pituitary gland.
But tell them not to.
You're fine.
That, by the way. Don't inject yourself with the wrong.
Don't
don't take the wrong hormone. You won't like it.
So again, that's scientific proof that it is entirely possible to be born one way and feel another way, and the brain reflects that.
Oh yeah. And to that point, I kind of always lived in like fog for most of my life, and then once I started HRT, it was like a fog was lifted. There was so much more. I felt like I could do more. I felt like,
well, you weren't masking either.
Yeah, and that's kind of another thing too. It's just my life and who I wanted to be, and then who I knew myself to be, and then it's just it was almost like dominoes. Like everything that had been building up in my life finally fell, if you will. And I just was just like, I have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I have got to do this. Like if I don't do this, then I'm never going to live, really, or you get to that point where you feel like you've never lived. And it was just like, I'd rather, I don't know if you've seen The Shawshank Redemption, but I was like, I'd rather get busy living rather than getting busy dying. So I started transitioning, and everything became, I became a much more productive, efficient, effective person. I became me because I didn't feel like that.
Yeah, when you get away from, and I can attest to that myself, is when you get away from trying to please people, because my life is a little different than yours, but I spent a lot of time also trying to fit into a box. I was an adopted child, so it's a totally different subject, but, being somebody that you want to fit into this box of perfection, you want to be accepted and perceived to be I chose you, and I want you to be this idea of what I chose. And I had a lot of outbursts, especially as a child, because you're like suppressing so much, because I'm trying to control the person that I feel inside.
Yeah.
And then that version of me could only mask for so long before I would be like, because you're essentially being controlled.
It's like a pressure cooker.
It is. And the more I got away from masking and I started to just be the human that I felt comfortable as,
Yeah.
that allowed me to go out in the world and be a much more productive person. And also my relationships reflected that.
Of course.
Not
Yeah.
just my friendships, not just the relationships that I held. They were more authentic.
Of course.
They were people who accepted you
I like that you use the term authentic, because there's a hair that keeps on getting in my mouth. I like that you use the term authentic, because for trans people, it is very much us wanting to just be our authentic selves and live authentically. That's all we care about. And
I think that's people.
And
so if you're
exactly
asking for the same thing in
Yeah.
society, you want to be seen and accepted for your authentic self. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you be willing to do that for the people around
Exactly.
you?
And the interesting thing is that when you let go of those things, when you let go of that notion that everyone has to fit into some bubble that, patriarchy has put us all into, including men. Like, patriarchy does not love you. Like, they don't love you if you're a man. They consider you a violence object. I can't remember who wrote the paper, but I read a paper years ago about how patriarchy puts women in the bubble of sex object, but men in the bubble of violence object. And that is also a cruel thing to do to men.
Well, yeah, and I think in today's society, and a lot of the reason that I created Society Secrets is to debunk a lot of societal pressures, because we teach men that emotions are,
It's terrible.
you must perform in a way and must be stonewalled, basically. In order to go out in the world, you must be ultra masculine, you should have no emotions, and to function like that, this is why men die earlier than women. We're suppressing. We need to not force people to suppress things and allow people to express themselves in a healthy manner. Emotions are an amazing thing. We're given those to survive as well, and because of the suppression of those things, we're also we're creating, if what we suppress must manifest somewhere.
Exactly.
And so again, it will suppress sometimes in violence, or it can suppress in other ways, whether it's sexual identity, it can express in domestic violence. It's making people more aware, self-aware of who they are, so they can go out and be the more authentic version of themselves. Because when you have that, you have people who are productive in society for the good.
Yeah, and it allows you to have peace. It allows you to have peace of mind and peace of self, and PEACE peace. But it's one of those things where it's interesting. You touched on it, and I can't remember who coined the phrase, but it's like, our society does force men to engage in like psychic mutilation, where you have to hate that part of yourself that is emotional and is, more gentle, more sensitive, capable of expressing those kinds of emotions. And it's just like, if you allow yourself to do that, you'll feel a lot better, because you're allowing your humanity to exist, kind of thing. And that's just something that, like you said, that's all anyone wants. It's just to be authentic, to be heard, and to be loved. And it's very difficult to be loved if you aren't loving you.
I love that. Yeah, that's one thing I 1000% agree with, which is the minute I feel that I started to love myself and kind of heal the idea that I had to be, what I thought my family and society wanted from me, when I started to heal that and authentically live as I felt comfortable, I feel that
Yeah.
the way that I saw myself, even because I struggled, I think you and I talked about this too. I struggled a lot with like body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
I never struggled with people telling me that I was attractive. But the thing is it didn't matter. I didn't see that. I never had that. Internally, I would look in the mirror and see something very different, especially when someone would take a picture of me. The picture would come back, and it was like I would sometimes immediately turn away and I would cry because it wasn't the reflection that internally I could see the person that I was meant to be, but what I was seeing was the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I think once I really started to be comfortable within myself, that also started to change. It's not every day is not a good day,
No,
but you
God, no.
have better days when you are loving who you are and you're going out in the world and doing your best to be the authentic version of yourself.
Yeah.
And
It's a journey.
You're incredibly brave because there's a lot of people who are still hiding and masking because they are afraid of the societal pressure to conform.
Yeah.
And it creates very sick individuals. It creates misery within self.
It does.
And I know that especially in the LGBTQ plus community, you have a lot of suicides for that reason.
Yeah, the suicide rate is fairly high in our community, and obviously the political climate that we're under currently is not good for trans people. Obviously, taking away healthcare for trans people is effectively just killing us. That's, and then of course having legislative agendas where we're not allowed to change the gender on our passport, not allowed to change the gender on our birth certificates, not allowed to change gender on your driver's license. That is just, it makes it more and more difficult to live, to where you're just legislated out of existence completely. And it just completely devalues you. And the funny thing is, I say this all the time. I pay my taxes like anyone else, and the government is not serving me the way it does anyone else. Here in the state of Florida, I can't even change the gender marker on my driver's license, which means that I can't use my own health insurance to get a mammogram. I have breasts. A mammogram will not be covered for me. So
if you wanted to have a mammogram, where would you have to go?
Oh, I could go. It wouldn't be covered. I would have to pay. I would have to pay out of pocket for a mammogram. And it's like, in a society that actually genuinely cared about people and gave a shit about people and gave a shit about healthcare, like actually in reality, you would be able to say, I'm transgender. And then you could get those kinds of things covered. But it's not even an option. So
I remember you saying that you were likely going to move to another state where it's more accepted.
Yeah, actually. So I am considering heavily, Master Gregory and I very heavily actually are considering moving to Colorado. It is a much more. I went to a place in Boulder, Colorado. It was a restaurant. I think it was called like Rosetta or something. And the bathroom there was just like a multi-gender bathroom. So men, women, really anyone using the restroom, you went in one restroom. And it was a giant restroom with a whole bunch of stalls.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like everyone went in there to use the restroom.
There are places that have, whatever. What did you call it?
It's a multi-gender restroom.
Multi-gender. Unfortunately, I feel like that should be the case. What does it matter if you're closing the door behind you anyways?
Yeah, if it's a large open room with a bunch of stalls. And that's kind of another thing too, is I've never walked into a restroom and had someone doing something inappropriate in a restroom. It's a hypothetical. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how far we've gone. We've gotten to the point now where hypotheticals are all that matter. And interestingly enough, there's like in the NCAA, there's like 4 like known like trans women who are competing, and that's in the whole of the NCAA, which has hundreds of thousands of young athletes participating in it, and they're not breaking records. Like Leah Thomas tied Riley Gaines for 5th, and that's it. Now Riley Gaines has made an entire career off of being anti-trans, and that's really what it is. It's not even that any of these people care about trans people existing. It's that these people can then turn their political wedge issue into a grift, into some way to make money.
It's really unfortunate, because when you're anti anything, a lot of times all it does is show that you have a dark spirit and that you're not an accepting person. And at the same time, you want people to be accepting of who you are.
Yeah.
So I feel
very much pot calling kettle black.
it
people with
is.
glass
I
houses
actually
and
feel like a
stones.
lot of anti anything, and I'm not a political person. I always say that. I tend to lean more into spirituality. I just want to be the light I want to see in the world.
Yeah. And there's nothing, and
Go out and be a good person so that other people feel seen and heard. I don't understand hate. I don't understand what that is. How is that benefiting anyone other than spreading a cancer?
I think that for people who find solace in hatred or who push hate, they use it as a shield. It is very easy to push that kind of thing and either use it as a shield or use it as a way to get ahead in one's own life. It's a deflectionary tactic.
Or an example of how they truly feel about themselves. You know, they say projection. It's like projecting my inner insecurities onto others so that, and again, yes, sure, it got this person a lot of attention.
Oh yeah. God, yeah. And
how much studying do you think she did on the subject?
Like, if there was a massive issue with trans women in bathrooms, trans women kicking ass in like athletic competitions, if there was this huge issue with trans people being violent, terrible, horrible people, you'd know about it. You'd hear about it. It would be like a real thing that would show up everywhere. It shows up nowhere. Like there's nothing. Like we are just like anyone else. And the funny thing is, they're so obsessed with trans women, they forget about trans men entirely. And trans men are half the transgender population. You know, these are people who, born female, transition to male. And the interesting part is, testosterone really hits like a hammer. Mm-hmm. So with trans men, they'll grow facial hair. They will literally fit in and look like any other man. It is really incredible. I've met some wonderful trans men in my life, and they're just like any other man out there. Like if they walked into the men's room, there would not be a problem with them being in the men's room. But the law in Florida actually says that if you're a trans man, right, you can't go into the men's room. They would expect trans men to go into the women's room. And that's the thing. It's based solely on people's genitals, based on their plumbing. It's putting people at risk. It's putting people in harm's way.
Unnecessary harm's way, really.
Oh yeah, it's completely unnecessary, especially because, and I know I focus on the bathroom thing quite a bit. It's just something that
you have to actively think about when you're going places, which makes sense. So it must.
I just went to the Science Center recently. I was generally worried about using the bathroom because I was like, does this building take state funds? Is someone going to, because if someone can call the police on you if you're in there and you refuse to leave the restroom, but refusing to leave a restroom, being sat down on a toilet bowl in the middle of taking a piss and having someone banging on your door being like, you need to get out of this restroom right now. What am I supposed to do? I can't just shoot out the door. Right. So I literally don't trust people to not be shitty to me. So I just waited until the family restroom was available. And like, I had to go. I remember, I think I stood there for like 20 minutes because someone was like changing their child in there because they only had changing rooms in the family restroom. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, you know, it's just absolutely wild. And it's, what I wonder is like, I'm always happy for people when they are exploring themselves and being their genuine selves. I don't understand why me doing that is such a fucking problem. Like I'm just out here trying to live. Like, I'm not trying to do
I
anything.
feel the same way. I'm like, it's really none of my business how you live your life unless it directly affects me or harms people.
Yeah.
And I feel like what people do privately in their life, behind closed doors, how they express themselves to
Oh,
other
yeah.
people, as long as you are not out hurting people, causing corruption, black magic, whatever. Just kidding. If that's what you're into, I support it. I want to see people be authentically happy in their lives because I've seen the power of what that looks like and how it changes people for the better.
Yeah.
And when healed people do better things, they just do.
They do. And they're a joy to be around. And
Mhm.
that's another thing too about loving yourself is you attract people who are about that energy. If you are about hate and and you know self-loathing, you're going to attract other people who are about that too. And your life will and you will suffer. Your soul suffers as an effect of that. Once you start saying I love myself, you kind of push toxic people out of your life. And I'm lucky enough that I have supportive parents, supportive friends. I've not had to deal with that. I'm one of the fortunate ones out there as a trans person. I'm very fortunate. Other trans people are not that fortunate. And that's kind of the thing where it's just once you start loving yourself, those toxic people won't want to be around you anymore because you're no fun anymore. You're not you you're not part of their whole dynamic of wallowing in some kind of negative energy.
Self mutiny is what I like to call it.
It's like negative energy, and I have met some of the most fantastic people I've ever met in my life since transitioning because I surround myself with people who love me and love that I'm me. And wouldn't you know, those kinds of people are also successful in their own right and are good, genuine people. So it's just I've found nothing but wonderful, genuine people within the trans community and the kink community too. But
Yes, everything you just said is really accurate. It really isn't that they don't want to hang out with you, is that I feel your energy rejects that.
yeah, exactly.
So it's even if they want to hang out with you, it's sort of like a protective wall kind of it surrounds you in a way that if you have ill intention, they can't get over the barrier.
No, yeah.
And I personally like that.
Yeah.
Keep your negative shit away from me.
It just takes like one person in your life to be more positive and to have those kinds of positive engagements in their own life.
Right.
And then if you're open to it, and you have to be open to this kind of thing, you have to be open to changing your perspective on life. I transitioned, but I changed my whole perspective on life too at the same time. I became more positive. I became more genuine. And it's like, if you're not happy, look at who you're keeping company with and look at the way that life is moving around you. If there's someone in your life who's incredibly positive and is doing really cool shit and is living, more authentically and doesn't really give a shit what people think about them, pay attention to that. Spend time with that person. That person will pull you with them. They'll pull you up with them. People who are down in a hole will drag you down with them.
Have you sink.
Surround yourself with positivity and surround yourself with good people who give a shit about you. Genuinely. They'll pull you up.
And like you for the person that you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus how you identify, what your sexuality is, what lifestyle you live behind closed doors. What we were just tapping into is far more important. Are you a good human and are you authentically living?
If someone who was just starting on their journey came to me and they're like, what should I do? I'm doing all this shit right now. I wouldn't just jump in and be like, just go be you right now.
No,
make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
Make sure that you can do all these things. But, it is really worth it on the other side. As long as you have some kind of support structure, and that's a big thing that I would say is huge I can speak from my experience as a trans person, support structure, friends, and if your family doesn't support you, that fucking sucks. But you have to find a found family and get that support structure. Support structure is everything. It's very difficult to do this.
Sometimes you have to create your own family.
A lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, they will have found family because their family doesn't support them or ostracizes them. And it's terrible to lose that. But I've met some of the toughest people I've like ever met in this community. You have to be tough to do this.
I agree. So before we close out, you've done an amazing job.
Thanks.
First and foremost, thank you so much for being authentically you, of course. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with before closing out the show?
If you meet a trans person, just treat them like you would anyone else, Ask them, hey, are you comfortable? Like, if you want to know more, say, are you comfortable with me asking some questions? Just be open, be genuine with them. You don't got to be afraid of them. They're not going to bite you.
Or maybe they will.
Else. I mean, if they're kinky, maybe, but only if you ask. If you're on your own journey of finding yourself, good luck.
Yeah, good luck to everybody out there. And I want to say thank you to Sadie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, beautiful person. This is Society Secrets, and this is the unmasked version of Sadie.